One of the elements of Hyakta that I enjoyed was how flawed he was in this book. He was trying to cover up mistake after mistake before fixing it or before finding a solution so no one would alert the government. However, by doing so, Hyakta neglected the safety of his students and staff. Hello, welcome to another book review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I will be reviewing the MG fantasy book, Rainbow Reflections, Put Out the Fire, by writer Phoenix. In case you're interested in buying this book afterward, content warnings are mild abuse, angry outbursts, and fire. I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally the characters. Also, this review will be spoiler-free until between these timestamps, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I recommend skipping over that section. Now that those notes are out of the way, let's begin! According to the back of the book, the plot is as follows. Images of a perfect school year quickly go up in flames. Kao Cat is still trying to get into the magic school. Octu is trying his best to keep the spirit out. Meanwhile, Zen continues to struggle with their magic, Ren attempts to figure out where she came from, and Sorella isn't sure where she belongs. Will their inner fires be dampened when facing new challenges, or burn more strongly than before? The second year is off to a heated start. Overall, the plot of Rainbow Reflections Book 2 was exciting and had plenty of great elements. So much so that I had trouble putting the book down. My favorite parts were Zen trying different methods to figure out their magic through various independent experiments, and Sorella working on her martial arts. Zen's storyline was especially relatable for anyone who had or is having trouble keeping up with their peers in a school and or developmental level. I also enjoyed that the antagonist got a bigger role in this book instead of merely showing up at the end. Actions such as them attacking the airship and causing trouble in this school made them feel like more of a threat. Plus, it was great to see one of the lessons from class be used in the end to help solve a major conflict. For the writing, writers' descriptions have improved from the first book. They included more sensory descriptions beyond just visuals, which definitely helped draw me more into the head of the characters. It also contributed to feeling the emotions of the main cast deeper, which made the book more impactful. Furthermore, most of the mundane subjects, or in this case, classes that Zen, Ren, and Sorella found boring or exhaustive, were glossed over. This helped make the story feel more focused and resulted in better pacing. Overall, I enjoyed the writing this time around and found it to be a stronger part of the novel. That said, one of the critiques I do have is to maybe make the telepathy between people use a different look than italics. For instance, in the Animorph series, when the characters communicate via telepathy, it is shown in between arrow brackets. That small detail helped immensely with separating out plain thoughts from communicating via a headspace, which didn't throw me out of the story. There wasn't too much world building as far as I could pick out. That said, there were some new bits of information that kept the story interesting and expanded the world enough. This included exploring a new city, Vinetown, and visiting Jabali's work. Another example was when more plants were explored, including some poisonous ones. Finally, there was also the time that Zen was trying to figure out which orphanage they were picked up at, which was a city that the reader had never heard of before. Oh boy, Zen had it rough in this book. I related to their frustration when their magic worked randomly. It didn't help that after an accident involving fire, people began to see them differently, and they were already being mocked by C3. A part of me wanted the teachers to step in because although Zen's friends stood up for them, the bullying didn't stop. When Zen got in trouble for breaking school rules, all of those scenes were extremely well written. It was so well done that I, a typical good student in school, felt like I was also somehow getting punished at the same time. Very good emotional writing on writer's part. That said, as much as I felt for them, Zen's actions at the end were pretty bad. I understood that their anger had been building for some time, but lashing out like that was over the line and not a productive way to manage their feelings. However, that was a flaw that I really liked, especially since I'm guessing that this outburst will have major consequences in the future. Can't wait to see where Zen's arc goes from here. Just like in the last book, Ren unfortunately didn't get too much of an arc. Sure, she had a growing relationship with Sorella, but that was about it. Although the romantic subplot wasn't bad as a whole, and Ren did learn some valuable lessons, I felt like Ren's character was underused. I would have preferred to explore how Zen's struggles impacted their relationship, especially since Ren had no trouble with her magic. I felt like seeing their sibling dynamic shift and splinter while Ren tried to repair it would have been more meaningful. To me, it would have made the final ending scenes between the two twins more of a major gut punch. All of that said, the events Ren did go through weren't bad by any means. What she learned from her eventually not so great romantic relationship with Sorella was extremely crucial for any person and any relationship, no matter who that relationship is within a person's life, whether it is with a parent, partner, or a friend. It is never okay for said person to hurt someone verbally, emotionally, or physically. Unfortunately, many young people in a relationship aren't taught this or what different types of abuse can look like. In short, this was an extremely important lesson for Ren and also the reader to learn, and I was glad that it was included. Out of the main trio, Sorella became my least favorite this time around. She started off okay, but as the book went on, her attitude got worse and worse. Although I didn't mind Sorella having a grumpy personality, the way she treated other people throughout the book became unacceptable. This was especially evident when she tried to make Ren jealous due to Sorella's feelings being accidentally hurt. Thankfully, the other characters did call Sorella out on her attitude, and the situation improved for a while. However, when Mimete was spotted on school grounds, all that progress fell apart. Sorella retreated into herself again and became more standoffish and tense, especially when it came to martial arts training. I understood that facing past trauma can be incredibly stressful and reopen old wounds and coping mechanisms, but that wasn't an excuse for how Sorella was treating those around her. Honestly, after what happened during the climax, I'm not sure if I want Sorella and Ren to potentially get back together. Although Sorella was remorseful for her actions, which is a good sign in terms of how she may react to similar situations in the future, she definitely has a lot of self-reflection to do in terms of her relationships with other people. As characters, Mint and C3 have both gotten more fleshed out. Although C3 was still aggravating as ever during the first half of the book, he did start to come around during the second half. I think If I recall correctly, C3 even apologized to Zen, which was a big step in the right direction. For Mint, their issues around their anxiety, low self-esteem, and lack of confidence was relatable. It was great to see Mint talk out the problems and express what they had been struggling with in terms of making friends and not wanting to disappoint their parents. It's good progress because for people with anxiety, they may feel as if they are burdening others with their problems by discussing them. All in all, both Mint and C3 are developing into wonderful secondary characters. One of the elements of Hyakta that I enjoyed was how flawed he was in this book. He was trying to cover up mistake after mistake before fixing it or before finding a solution so no one would alert the government. However, by doing so, Hyakta neglected the safety of his students and staff. When it came to the situation involving Zen, Hyaktu didn't handle it the best either. Although Hyaktu did well by helping Zen learn to reset on an emotional level through meditation, along with making sure Zen wasn't having any medical issues, I felt like Hyaktu or the school could have done more. For instance, despite Zen struggling with some emotional issues related to magic and self-confidence, Hyaktu only offered them counseling services once. Why not make outside counseling for students mandatory after the first referral? If a student got a referral by the school, especially if said student is normally well behaved, there could be some deeper emotional issues going on. Regardless, the ending was a consequence of Hyaktu's actions. Again, these are flaws that I like, and this is me taking note of what I see in Hyaktu as a well-written character. Hopefully, Hyaktu will get many emotional issues with his children resolved soon. A detail that I really liked was how both Keokat and Memete got bigger roles in the book. Keokat definitely seemed like more of a menace. It was also nice to get more of the backstory around what happened between Keokat and Hyaktu from time to time. Love this evil kitty. Now for Mimete, although she did appear a bit more throughout the book to creep out Sorella, I felt like she wasn't there enough. Sure, she did manage to get past the school defenses and contributed to the climax, but for some reason, I couldn't take her seriously as an antagonist. I think that it was because the reader was told all of the evil deeds Mimete had committed, but her actions made her out to be weak and that she was defeated too easily. Alright, now onto the spoilers. I'll count to 3 seconds if you want to keep this book spoiler free. 1, 2, 3. And here we go! For the last few chapters, there were elements I enjoyed and others that I felt could still use some work. In terms of what I loved, the climax was great, with the characters applying some of the knowledge they had learned in class. It was also fun to watch most of the main students work together to help free the kidnapped teachers. However, I also felt like the climax of the book dragged on. After Sorella got kidnapped from the school grounds, the cast waited an entire month before attempting a rescue mission. The most the teachers did was send out one of their professors in the hope of finding Sorella. And given how large the area was, it seemed like an impossible task. The students should have snuck off school grounds hours after the kidnapping when it was clear that the teachers weren't going to do much. It would have given them more agency as well as ramping up the stakes and tension since there would have been a high level of danger in the surrounding area. Another detail that irked me was how after the group discovered where the prisoners were being held, it was a short walk from the school. How did none of the teachers think to check the small clearing that was extremely close? My issues with the ending aside, the last few chapters after the group returned were amazing. Hyaktu having his school shut down and possibly being arrested by the government was an outcome that I did not expect. It was a fitting one though. Plus, Zen going off on everyone and running away after being expelled was so thrilling and sad to read. I really felt for them, and it was an ending that took me by surprise when I had been a beta reader. I really hope that Zen will be okay and will eventually reunite with their family. They will have much to work through though. Overall, I give this book 4.5 stars. The writing has definitely improved. Plus, learning more about the characters and seeing how their flaws impacted each other was fun. I do wish the climax had come sooner, but it wrapped up fine. I cannot wait for book 3 to see where this cliffhanger goes. I hope writer will keep improving their craft and wish them the best of luck on their writing journey.